Hi, everybody. Welcome to A Fresh Start in 2021, which is co-sponsored by Robert Fritz Incorporated and Creator Tools. My name is Bill Brunel, and I'm honored to be your host today. I'm a coach for Creator Tools, a professional magician, and a meditation teacher. The president of Creator Tools is Ivan Fritz, who just happens to be Robert's son. Now, for many years, Robert trained teachers to deliver an in-person video-based course called Creating Your Life. It was formatted to be taught in 5 weekly 3-hour meetings. I became a teacher of it in 2003 and taught it in my Manhattan apartment. Several years ago, Robert updated the course for the online, putting it on steroids with 80 daily 10-minute lessons to give people a chance to really imbibe the creative process as a part of their lives. That's also when Ivan and his wife, Jen Thornton, founded Creator Tools, brought into play their filmmaking, technology, and business skills to shoot and make all 80 lessons and format them for an online environment. It was a really spectacular project. It's my pleasure first to introduce Ivan Fritz. Ivan has had multiple careers in film, theater, and technology infrastructure, working for Francis Ford Coppola and Lucasfilm. Welcome, Ivan.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. I hope that you are all doing well today.
Um, so it's basically 3 sections to what we're going to do. I'm going to introduce Robert in a moment, and he has a wonderful presentation for a fresh start in 2021. And then the bulk of the call, the rest of it is going to be Q&A. And we're going to be taking questions about the Creating Your Life course. We're going to take any questions. First thing to do would be to listen to carefully to what he says and ask questions about that. We'd like to really get into those questions first, sort of, this fresh start in 2021. And we can certainly talk about the course and all that. So let's jump in. Robert is an accomplished composer, filmmaker, and writer, and he is also an organizational consultant for some of the largest companies in the world. His first book, The Path of Least Resistance, became an international bestseller. His latest book, Identity, written with Dr. Wayne Scott Anderson, explores how identity issues thwart the ability to create the life you want. So Robert, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, glad to be here. And hello, everybody. Shall I just begin, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, it's really great that you're all here. And welcome to A Fresh Start in 2021. So let's begin with a few observations. This past year has been very hard and challenging for many people. And two major factors, of course, are the pandemic and the economy. And of course, one has driven the other. Because of the pandemic, many businesses have had trouble, many going under, many finding new ways to do their work. And we have to understand that, while we might be able to be the predominant creative force in our own lives, we are not the predominant creative force in the universe. Structural tension, which is the most powerful structure for creating, includes the outcomes we want to create, but also reality. Reality these days includes the state of the world. And let me be very direct about this. You don't get to create what you want if you don't survive. So one thing that we need to say is that our first outcome that we may want to create is survival. Beyond that, we might want to add optimal health and well-being and a host of other kinds of goals. If we create structural tension on those goals, we need to take reality seriously. As it stands right now, it's easy to get COVID. The new strain is more infectious than ever. We don't know who has it, who doesn't. That's just a fact. That is why, until you're able to get vaccinated, you need to manage your circumstances. The usual things, wear proper mask, wash your hands, and so on. You've heard it all. We all have. But some of us seem not to take this advice seriously, and that is one reason why the pandemic is getting worse. So I was talking to my doctor the other day, and we were both complaining about the people who happily get involved in mass spreader events. And I said, I thought that the survival instinct was the strongest one humans have, and maybe I'm wrong. And he said, if a Mack truck were coming right at them, they would get out of the way. They just don't get the danger. Well, I thought that was a pretty good insight. He could be right about that. And for you, your survival instinct can be more than an instinct. It can be an important goal that we think about in terms of what we want to create this year. If survival is primary, and current reality tells us that there are predictable risks that we face, we would make a series of secondary choices to support our goal. So why haven't many people responded to the real dangers of COVID? As in all things, it is the underlying structure that generates the behavior. Whenever we're reacting to conflict, the cycle is the same. Conflict drives action. We take the action. It reduces the emotional conflict we feel. We're no longer motivated by the experience of conflict, and that leads to returning to the original dangerous behavior. And this is always true. Action motivated by conflict will always be temporary. It's not sustainable. And that's why so many people protected themselves for a while only to fall back into old habits that prove dangerous and for too many fatal. I want to show you this. I'm going to share the screen for a moment, so give me a moment to set this up. Okay, so maybe I'll do it this way. Can you? Okay, so if I have a conflict, that drives action. Now, once we take the action, the point of the action is to reduce the conflict. Conflict may not go away, but the experience of conflict does reduce. And this creates an oscillating pattern where at first people are more prone to protect themselves and then they forget about it all. When people talk about COVID fatigue, it's not really fatigue. It is what motivated them in the first place to take protective action. So the intensity of the conflict drove action, which then reduced the conflict, which then led to less future action. But now if we, let's say survival is not just simply an instinct, but a goal that we have, and current reality is there are various risks and dangers, real risk, then we would take action designed to survive. And that's those would all be secondary choices to the primary choice of survival. So those are two different structures, one that's driven by conflict and one that's driven by desired outcome. Make survival an outcome we want to create. Put it in the context of structural tension, see reality accurately, and then we'll make the right choices. We're thinking in terms of desired outcomes, not in terms of avoiding danger. And here's another point, this one about New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions hardly ever last. Why? It's the underlying structure of New Year's resolutions. Why do we make them in the first place? To get rid of bad habits, to fix ourselves, to overcome problems. Here's the underlying assumption. We're not good enough and we need to be better than we are this year. So we're trying to problem solve our lives through these resolutions. And here's a better idea. Let's create the outcomes we actually care about. Creating is not problem solving, and problem solving is not creating. I know most of you have heard me say this 1,000 times, maybe 10,000 times, but you can almost not hear it enough. When you're problem solving, you're taking action to have something go away, the problem. When you're creating, you're taking action to have something come into being, the creation. You can solve all of your problems and still not have what you want. Life is not a problem to solve. It's an opportunity to create those things that matter most to you. Now, most New Year's resolutions are about diet and exercise. going to eat better. I'm going to work out. And a few days you eat a more healthy diet and you work out. But little by little, you slide back into old habits. Why? Is it that you're weak-willed or you have a character flaw or that you're in league with the devil? No, it's the underlying structure you're in. Change the structure and the behavior will change. And this is the path of least resistance. Energy moves where it's easiest for it to go. Manipulation will always end up in an oscillating pattern in which success will be reversed and you'll end up in the same place you started. So to think about what you might want to create this year is helpful, but not as a correction or a problem to solve, more like a creation to make. And if you begin with the understanding that you don't have to improve, you don't have to accomplish anything, you don't have to justify your existence or prove your worth or find a purpose in life, be better than you are, then you have a chance to think in terms of what you actually want. Given that you don't have to create it and you want to create it, it frees you from the pretense of obligation and it puts you into the reality of choice. Now, choice means you can do it or not do it. And if you choose to create something, it's because you choose to, not because you have to. So let's talk right now about this. Here's one way to think about it. We may have some real limitations to normal life right now because of the pandemic. Just write that into current reality. That might mean that some of your goals need to be put on hold for a while. But in the meantime, what can you do? Build more and more foundation for your life. Create more and more of what you can do right now and be productive. Set out for simple goals at first and then create them. This is the pattern we can create. Practice structural tension, just like a musician practices playing music. The pattern is you set out for something, you create structural tension by knowing what you want and where you are. You take strategic action to accomplish the goal, and then you complete the goal. Repeat that cycle consistently. The more you create, the more you can create. First, little things, and then larger, more ambitious things, and finally, major life goals that you may have. So while you're doing all of this, don't make it about you. As Dr. Wayne Anderson and I said in our book, Identity, put the focus on the creation, not on you as creator. And this can be a profound, life-changing insight. So here are a few tips for thinking about how to use this time to your own benefit. And I mean the time we have while we're dealing with COVID. Learn something new. For me, I've signed up for an online cooking class. For you, maybe it's a foreign language training or to learn pottery or to remake a room or to paint or to write or to write poetry or to read War and Peace. And of course, one thing I recommend is our online course, Creating Your Life, which we'll talk about later. But the point is that after we get back to what might be called normal, we'll have something to show for the time. Not that you have to have anything to show for it, but there might be a few things that you'd like to do. Here's another suggestion. List about 15 goals that you may have that are of no major consequence in your life. Let me say that again. 15 goals that are not a major consequence in your life, have no major consequence in your life. Have no particular big deal thing about them. Just 15 things you'd like. And this will give you practice in creating. The more you create, the more you can create. Also, it will have an impact on your quality of life. Put due dates on those goals, maybe create a structural tension chart by naming current reality and the action steps as well as the outcome. Put due dates on the action steps and then create the goal one by one. Here's the thing. You're teaching yourself that when you set out for a goal, you create it, that you can count on yourself, that you have a track record and a good habit, and that becomes a new pattern. Now, one last thing until we begin to talk to folks. Feel what you feel. Forget trying to be positive. If you feel frustrated, feel frustrated. If you feel sad, feel sad. If you feel joy. Don't make your feelings a centerpiece of your life. Make creating the various things that you want to create the centerpiece of your life. On good days and bad days, you can create those things no matter what else is going on. And that's what I wanted to begin with today. And now we can open it up and talk to folks and answer questions or hear comments. Bill?
So first up is
Giant. Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much. Am I audible?
You are, and we can see you.
Wow. Well, Bill, Ivan, and Robert, I am one of your fans. I'm from India. I'm a professor. I teach postgraduate students. And Robert, I've read your book. I've watched many of your videos. And I'm in touch with one of your students from US, Mr. Lubit. He is connected with you since probably a year or so. So we do have conversations based on the book that I have read of yours, Creating Your Life as an Art. It's a very valuable book. What you shared just now, all those points are mentioned in that book. And in one sense, I'm trying to follow that book since like three and a half months. My question, so in one sense, it's almost like a dream come true to connect to all of you, especially Robert, to you. I'm very, very glad for this opportunity. Thanks to all of you for hosting this free webinar, because especially due to the currency exchange rate, your webinars, your online courses cost very high. So thanks so much for organizing this free webinar. Here's my question. And this is sort of, oceanically coming out of me because I've been waiting to directly communicate. If I could have got this chance and here this opportunity. So as I've shared that I'm a professor, I'm 40 years old. I've already tried many things in the world to help me with my issues. But it seems that, nothing could give that structure of success and then again success coming. So success over building over the success. And the biggest drawback or the biggest hit that I'm finding is my uh, uh, my habit of watching movies, engaging my time. So it's easy for me to make up primary goals. And then the biggest struggle that I find on my secondary habits or secondary goals is my attraction towards movies, or sort of my engaging myself into watching movies, which destroys my time, which is available for moving towards that, or applying towards that primary goal that I want to achieve, towards that creativity that I want to bring, the creation that I want to bring. So I do have practiced, small creations.
Okay, for the sake of time, I think I do have your question. So let me say a couple of things that I hope will be helpful. First of all, there's nothing wrong with loving movies. I mean, they're great. You have some of the most talented people in the world creating these wonderful pieces that are just superb. So let's not blame that you are attracted to these wonderful pieces of art. But I would write into current reality that you have a tendency to, watch movies rather than do some of the things you would need to do in order to accomplish your major goals. I mean, just put that in, and then you can self-manage based on that. Secondly, you're presenting this as if it's a problem to solve. And I'm wondering if that's your life orientation too. You know, your life is a problem to solve, and you're going to find all the things that are wrong and then try to solve them, which, by the way, is most people's orientation. And what, you know, one of the things that I think it's really important to make clear to people is there's nothing wrong with them being imperfect. You know, we're human beings, and there's, you know, we don't have to be better than we are. Question is, can we be more effective than we are? And if you know, for example, I lose my keys. If I don't walk into the house and hang my keys up immediately, I'm not going to find them next time I want to go out. I'll be searching the house. I got to get to the airport. I'm searching the house for my keys. So since I know that about myself, I've created a habit of first thing I do is put my keys up, and it becomes such a routine that if I don't do that, I feel like, what am I, something's wrong. Oh yeah, my keys, I got to go put my keys up. You know, if you know that there's certain predispositions that you have that make it hard for you to take the steps you need to take in order to accomplish what you want, that simply becomes part of current reality, and create a strategy for that then will enable you to be more productive on behalf of those kind of outcomes that you want to create. So hopefully that's going to be helpful to you. And don't blame yourself for loving these wonderful movies that people have spent millions and millions of dollars to put together and have gotten the most talented people in the world to participate in. Why wouldn't you love them? Thank you.
I need to see some Kevin Murphy.
Okay. Yeah. So mine was more of a comment. I think I'm currently in the Creating Your Life course. I'm working with John Donovan. So I'm in the military. We're doing the Nostros organization. And so this is my third session with you, Robert. This is excellent. I really enjoy that time. And my comment is this time of year was one of the great stories you used with the story of the Christmas Carol, which I thought was a great analogy to use with describing on not getting hung up on your past and looking forward. And so I just felt that was a really timely story, and I felt that it was really applicable for the New Year's as well. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, but that was really a statement I really enjoyed that piece that you brought up in that.
Yeah, well, I think it's a fantastic story. Scrooge saw the past, saw the current, you know, the present, saw the future, and was given a second chance. And I think this is one of the most incredible things that we as human beings have, is the ability to start over no matter what the past has been. You know, in a way, it's transcendence, it's grace, it's really being given the second chance. You don't have to, you know, work out the past. You don't have to relive your karma or relive your past experiences. You can really rethink everything, and then start with this question. You know, what do I want to create? Okay, we are right now. What do I want to create? Where am I now in relationship to that? What do I need to do to move from here to there? You know, maybe I need to learn some things in order to accomplish those things that I don't now currently know. Or maybe I need to make some connections with certain people that do know things I don't know that can be helpful. But I mean, it's not only a great story, I think it's a great principle, and in a way nails the entire principle of Christmas, you know, that the birth of something new, that you're given a second chance and you can start again. And this is not about belief at all. It's really about this universal human truth that we can begin again. And great seeing you, Kevin, by the way. All the best to you. Happy New Year.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to read a question that came in from Tom. And it says, Robert, you often comment that saying affirmations do not work, at least if they are counter to the truth. If that is the case, how is it then that we are moved by movies and stories that are not true?
Okay, so first of all, affirmations are completely the opposite of movies. For example, movies are interesting. At least the ones you want to watch are. Secondly, you know, there's this thing that's called the suspension of disbelief that they talk about in film and plays, which I totally disagree with. I don't think that we suspend disbelief when we're watching fiction. I think what we're doing, if it's a really well structured piece of art, it creates its own universe, and we live in that universe. So we all know Star Wars is fiction, and we know it was something originally created by George Lucas, and we know that some of the characters are actors and some of them are animated, blah, blah, blah. But we also understand that we're enjoying the universe that Lucas created, and the characters and the story and the drama and the tension resolution systems, that all of that is beautifully structured. And so naturally, we become an audience, a happy audience for those kinds of films. I don't see any connection between that and asserting that you're wonderful at this, or you're great at that, or you're, a winner, or you're, I mean, affirmations basically are designed by people who misunderstand what the subconscious mind does. They think the subconscious mind doesn't know what's real, and if you feed it positive things, it will start to move in that direction. Fact of the matter is, subconscious knows exactly what's going on, including why you're trying to propagandize yourself. And so that what gets it's called the boomerang effect. What gets reinforced are the doubts you have about whether or not you're this or that or the other thing you're affirming. Great actors don't have to affirm, I'm a great actor, I'm a great actor. Rich people don't have to say, I'm rich, I'm rich. So the whole notion of affirmations are silly. Here's the thing. What's the outcome you want? Where are you now in relationship to that? What actions do you need to take? When are you going to take them? All right, one last thing. It's really not about you. We keep trying to focus you away from being self-referential to being externally referential. What is the thing that you want to create? And by the way, it doesn't matter what you think about yourself, good, bad, or indifferent. You still want good relationships, no matter what you think about yourself. You want productive work. You want to do things that are meaningful to you in your life. And see, this has nothing to do with self-opinion. So a lot of the things in the self-help movement take you away from those things that will be most productive for you to create those things that matter most to you. So who's next?
We've got a question from Mukti. How do you move toward a goal of having a relationship which is, of course, inherently related to emotions? So emotions come up in the process of meeting people. Aren't they, the emotions, part of the creative process, at least for this particular goal?
Look, emotions are like the weather. So you might say, well, the weather's part of reality, isn't it? Yeah, the weather's part of reality. You bet. And, it's going to rain. You probably want an umbrella. And if it's going to be sunny, you might want, sun block, So look, here's the thing about emotion. Sometimes you feel good and sometimes you don't. Okay? Now, if you feel good, just wait a minute and eventually you won't. And if you don't feel good, just wait a minute and eventually you will feel good. And that's like the weather. So, but in terms of relationships, people can feel all kinds of things in relationships. Just listen to all the pop songs that have been written. I mean, my goodness, if I have a theory, by the way, that if it's not written in a pop song, it's not true, especially about relationships. So the thing is, relationships are really about specific other people. They're not general. It's not like, oh, I want some form of relationship. And that person then becomes a need fulfillment machine and they have to fulfill the whatever list you have of the needs you think you need fulfilled. We have in our lives affinities with different people. Some people we're attracted to more than others. And the mathematics of relationship is always the same. It takes two to say yes. It only takes one to say no. But if you get two yeses, then there's a basis of having a relationship. Now, one of the most powerful things is when two people join together and form a relationship based on the creative process. They can really build their lives together. Now, within that context, they're going to have good days and bad days. You're going to feel up and down. They're going to feel frustration. They're going to feel love. They're going to feel joy. They're going to feel all kinds of things. And if you make your emotions the centerpiece of your life, you're going to be jerked around here and there, left and right, up and down, sideways, you know, in every direction you can imagine. So all I'm saying about emotions is you feel what you feel, but don't make them the centerpiece of your life. And certainly if you want a relationship, don't make your emotions the centerpiece of your relationship. Love is not an emotion. It's a state of being, which has within it many emotions. Okay, Bill, who's next?
Okay. I'm going to give you two questions at once because they're related, I think. One is,
Okay.
Siobhan asks, Robert briefly mentioned know where you're coming from in order to create structural tension. Could he say a bit more about this? And then the other question is, he says, I was attracted to this webinar, aside from the fact that Robert's in it, from the title, Setting Goals and Creating a Firm Foundation to Support Them. Are we going to get to that?
Okay, the last question first. I thought I already had when I gave you all that advice in the beginning of the workshop. So hopefully that will still be worthwhile. And if you take that advice, in fact, you will set your goals for 2021. When you say about know where you're coming from, I don't quite put it that way. I think it's really important to know what your motivation is. Is your motivation to create something or to get rid of something? You know, I do talk a lot about knowing where you are, not where you're coming from. So those terms aren't, that phrase, know where you're coming from, isn't quite what I'm thinking about. So I just mentioned two things: motivation, you know, what are you really after, creating or getting rid of? And then knowing what current reality is objectively, you know, what's really going on.
Robert, could you just, I love hearing your description of, you know, how you design the course to work and what its purpose is.
The way I think about it, is the same way you learn music. And since I'm a composer and I spent 6 years at a conservatory, you know, so I got a bachelor's and master's in composition. And so I really appreciate how you can learn something and have a certain level of mastery of it over time and experience. The way I thought about this particular course is different from the workshops that I've designed. The workshops are very compressed learning. You know, you get a lot of experience and information and insight all at one time, which kind of plays out over time. And those are great workshops. But the creating your life happens over 3 months. You do small lessons every day, and we call it the learning dimension and the living dimension. So you learn a little something and you put it into practice that day. And then you learn a little something the next day and you put it into practice that day. And it becomes accumulative. Now, the course itself goes through phases. So it begins with very basic, fundamental stuff about how do you create a goal? How do you look at current reality? How do you put action steps together? How do you formulate due dates? In the beginning, we have 2-week goals. And the idea behind that is to have a compressed amount of time, enough of a, you know, short enough amount of time that you actually go through the entire creative process from beginning to end within 2 weeks. And after you create that goal, there's another 2-week goal and then another 2-week goal. And then from that, you begin to create longer term goals because you've already had a lot of experience. And then there's another thing in the course in which you create something between 5 and 15 minutes every day at a certain point in the course. And again, this is like a musician doing scales. You know, you do go through the entire creative process in a very small amount of time, but you're actually going through all of the actions. And I would say that one of the major goals of the course is to help shift the underlying structure you're living in from one that is oscillating to one that is advancing. In an oscillating pattern, you set out for something, you do what it takes, you get it for a while, but then there's some kind of reversal. And at the end of that pattern, you no longer have what you want. And the underlying structure is giving rise to that. And another underlying structure is different. You set out for something, you do what it takes, you create it, and that new creation becomes a platform for future success. So those are a few things about that course. And it goes, at first, it is very mechanical in a way, the mechanics of the creative process. Then it goes into the orientation of the creative process. Who are you as creator in relationship to your creations? And then finally, really gets to the spirit, the human spirit of the creative process. What is it that really loves to create? And of course, the subject matter almost always will be creating our lives, as if an artist is creating a work of art.
Monica had a question about freedom will be, she's asking if freedom is, I think it's an incomplete question. Freedom will be classified in orientation or spirit or both. And that the other question is, when will Robert give the relationships workshop?
Okay. So answer to the second question first. I don't have any plans to do the relationship workshop that Rosalind and I have led over the past number of years. So that's just how it is right now. Freedom is, what does it mean really in your life? Me, freedom is, first of all, artistic freedom. I can write what I want to write. I can make the films I want to make. I can write music I want to make. And in a way, I've organized my life so that that then becomes what I get to do. So when people think about freedom, I think about it as kind of editorial freedom. You get to really think what you want, do what you want, live your life the way you see fit. Particularly if you're able to organize your life around your deepest values and your highest aspirations. And now there are logistics and there are pragmatics that go along with that. How do you set up your life so that if you can't do that right now because you're kind of painted into the corner with logistics, your job, your kids in college or whatever, you can create a plan for transitioning out of that, not all at once, but little by little by little. So at the end of whatever that period is, you really have more freedom in your life to do what you want to do.
Okay.
We actually have one from Cynthia that I'd like to go ahead and ask because it's pertinent to this. The question is there any interaction online during the 3-month course, or do you just supply materials to recipients? And I just wanted to quickly answer that. We actually do a once-a-month conversations with Robert. That's very similar to this format, except that there are a fewer people and everybody has their cameras on. But it's a really great way for us all to see each other, for students to see each other from around the world, and also to gain insights from Robert during the course. So yeah, that's a big perk of being part of the course. Is once a month we do have an hour-long conversation. And then also I'm going to unmute Lubit so that Shweta can ask her question.
Let me.
Oh, okay. You want to?
That,
yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, because Bill also is available to students and often is answering questions or supporting them in thinking through goals and things like that. And the course itself, the nature of the course, even though there are videos, it's not simply just being talked at you. That the course itself is interactive by virtue of the exercises and so on. And myself and Rosalind are the presenters of the course. But the course work is what really teaches people how to master their own creative process on behalf of creating your life.
Okay. And do we have any raised hands?
Shweta is asking a question.
Shweta.
Uh,
Hi.
so my question is about the habits, Robert. That how you gave the example of the key hanging, and you know that that's my tendency. That if I don't put it in place, I would be losing a lot of time. So you
Mm,
consciously move to a different habit. So while I'm
mm,
doing a creating my whatever creations I'm doing, I'm recognizing there are a lot of long-standing habits that makes me less efficient. While I'm
mhm.
not making them as a problem solving and focused on them, just give me some cues about how do I handle when I recognize that there are some long-standing habits that have just become made me more
Mm.
less efficient. So how do you
Yeah,
handle those habits?
you write it into current reality because it's part of current reality. I tend to misspell. Yeah, I really do. And thank God for spell checkers. But even then, I can really still screw up a spelling of a word. And I write that into current reality. I know that. So then I have a strategy to address that as part of the process of creating what I want to create.
Hmm.
Right.
No, it's almost like an objective and evaluation of your predisposition.
Hmm.
So there's a question that I really can't not read to you, Robert. Uh, um, Patricia asks, she says, grief. I lost my grandson recently. I move forward with my goals and plans, and then I am stopped by grief. In time, I
Yeah.
move on again. Can you talk about health, grief?
Mm. First of all, what a sad thing. I'm so sorry to hear that. Boy. Well, the thing about grief, and it's really important to understand that the grief process is. I mean, people talk about the stages of grief and all of that. What really is going on is your mind is trying to accept a very hard to accept reality. And so you try to move and then it hits you and you try, and then you're okay. And then it hits you again. And then it hits you again and it hits you again. And what your mind is trying to teach you is that things have now changed and the person's no longer there. Um, if you don't go through the grief process, you can't actually go on in life. So it's a very important process. And there's nothing that will bring your grandson back. There's nothing that will make it better. In the meantime, life goes on and you can begin to find things that are of interest to you or that you want to create. And the proper way to experience grief is to grieve. I mean, there's no reason why you should try to distract yourself. No, even though you're grieving, there's still things you want to create. So create those things, but don't try to cheer yourself up, as it were. I hope that helps. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about grief, um, what it is and why it is. But I think it's really important to go through real grief when you're grieving. Don't try to avoid it. And again, so sorry to hear that.
Okay. I'm feeling badly because people are getting bolder with some questions. But
We
I
we
wanted
could
to,
probably take one more from Paul if you want, since he has his hand raised.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, great.
Well, this is more of a testimonial than a question. I've taken a number of classes from Robert, and I've been a professional songwriter, composer, and musician my whole life. Very fortunate to do that. But about 20 years ago, I started a program called Kid Pan Alley where I wrote songs with kids. Very shortly thereafter, I took one of Robert's workshops. Now, I put myself in this position where I needed to write songs with kids about 8 songs a week, and I had about 2 hours for each one. Robert really made me conscious of my own process, helped me move things along and strip away the things that weren't important to it, and then also encouraged me to do long form things. So I wrote a full length piece for orchestra and then 2 musicals. And I'd have to say that without Robert, I'm not sure we have 2,700 songs I've written with kids, and they're not silly kids songs. They're deep songs that have been recorded by artists, including, Amy Grant, Delbert McClinton, Kix Brooks, Sissy Spacek, and all. And I just want to thank Robert and urge you all to take advantage of the amazing programs he has to offer.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul's one of the greats, by the way. Just to say, Paul is I'm a big fan of Paul's. Paul, also, some of you may know his work from the band Trapezoid, which was Paul's band for a while.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Paul. And we just want to cover a couple of things at the end here. Ivan is going to talk about a special offer well, why don't you give that offer and then I'll add a couple things to it, Ivan.
Okay, I'm just sharing my screen now. Hopefully you can see it. This is we have a 10% discount code that will give you 10% off any of our subscription options. The coupon itself is only available until the end of this month, so it's a really limited time. And then below that, we have some contact information. If you have any questions about the course, about doing the course while you're in it, feel free to contact me. I'm at info@creatortools.net. But also, Bill, you might want to talk about what you're willing to offer, because I can't really say it for you.
Yeah. Okay. And that's there. I've got both my email and my phone number there. I hope you can see it. It's the phone, which is some ways the most immediate way to get hold of me, which is 646-992-4464. Or you can write me at magic4u. Now you have to follow the spelling here. It's MAGIC, F as in Frank, ORU as in university at AOL.com. So we'll leave those up there for a couple minutes while we go over this. But I just wanted to say that the monthly calls with Robert are fantastic, because we've only had these kinds of numbers one other time, I think, that we've done a big call like this. And so we're new to managing and covering everything. And the last thing we want anybody, we hope that you got some real inherent value out of today's work. And you can feel free to, anybody can call me at any time, but I'm going to make a special offer for those 20 people that come in first. That'll be on the coupon, which is that I'll do a minimum of 20-minute, well, it can be less if you like, coaching session when you hit lesson 4, and that was the 4th day of the course. That's when you'll be, by that point, you'll actually be picking your first 2-week practice goal to work on. It's where you pick something not terribly daunting or overwhelming or emotionally loaded. And there are some guidelines for having that be something where you'll get the most out of the practice. And you'll be doing several 2-week goals through the course. And I love sort of helping people with that first one. I'm also available anytime to anybody with any questions. If before you take the course, give me a call if you want to talk through whether or not it's going to really cover things that you're interested in or whatever. That's fine for me. Somebody just asked me if I was in Ojai with the 646 area code. No, that's an old New York cell phone number. So anyway, that's by the way, there's not a lead up to my charging you for coaching time or whatever. I do this because I really love the work. And this is not, this is, at this point, we're still developing this and I'm just helping out. I'm not a salaried staff member. I do this because I like doing it. So when I'm making the offer, not because of there being any economic payoff for any of us on it, just because I like to help. So anybody can call me. That was a long-winded, but.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other final things, Robert or Ivan?
Yeah, I do. There's one thing I want to also say about all of our trainings period, which is it's not a belief-based kind of system. It's this, and it's no more belief-based system than is music or writing or making film. It is philosophically neutral, as is the creative process. So it's not like substituting one belief system for another. So I just wanted to say that to everybody. And it's not like other things. It's not self-help. It really is the creative process as practiced in the arts all these various centuries. I just want to thank everybody for being on the meeting today. And particularly thank Ivan and Bill for the work you guys do and for setting this up. And I wish everybody a Happy New Year.